It was late evening at the Grandview Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in New York City. The lobby shone with golden lights, soft piano music played in the background, and guests in elegant clothes moved about, laughing and talking. Inside the restaurant, the air smelled of roasted meat, perfume, and expensive wine. Among the busy waiters moving quickly between tables was a young black woman named Lena. She wore her usual neat uniform, her hair tied up, and her calm smile that everyone at the hotel had come to know. Lena had been working at the Grandview for 3 years. She wasn't just good at her job. She was the kind of person guests remembered because of her kindness. No matter how tired she was, she treated everyone with the same patience and care. Some of her co-workers joked that she smiled too much for someone who worked double shifts, but Lena always said the same thing. A smile costs nothing, but it can make someone's day. That night was one of the busiest of the year. The hotel was hosting a private dinner for a group of high-profile business executives. The event was fancy: crystal glasses, candles, live music, and a menu filled with dishes most people couldn't even pronounce. For the staff, it meant extra pressure. Every plate had to be perfect, every glass spotless. The manager had made it clear that there was no room for mistakes. Lena's section was near the center of the dining hall, where some of the wealthiest guests were seated. She kept her focus, serving dishes and drinks carefully, checking that everyone was comfortable. Her feet hurt, but she ignored the pain. She had learned long ago that complaining didn't make things better. As the night went on, she noticed a man sitting alone at the far end of the table. He was tall, dressed in a dark gray suit that looked extremely expensive. His hair was slightly messy, and there was a tired look on his face. He kept drinking from his glass one after another until his speech began to slur. The other guests whispered among themselves, clearly uncomfortable. Some rolled their eyes, others quietly laughed, but no one said anything. That man was Mr. Carter, one of the richest real estate investors in the city. Everyone in the hotel knew his name. He owned multiple buildings, hotels, and shopping centers. He was known for being brilliant, but also very difficult to deal with. Staff usually hoped they wouldn't get assigned to his table because he was unpredictable, especially when drunk. The hotel manager whispered to Lena as she passed by, "Try to keep him calm, will you? The last thing we need tonight is a scene." Lena nodded and walked toward Mr. Carter's table. She could tell he was in no condition to keep drinking, so she gently replaced his wine glass with a glass of water. "Sir, maybe have some water for a bit," she said softly. "It'll help you feel better." He looked up at her, his eyes slightly glassy. "Do you know who I am?" he asked, his voice low but unsteady. "Yes, sir," Lena replied, keeping her tone respectful. "But right now I just see someone who's had a long day." That made him pause. For a moment, his arrogant expression faded and something almost human appeared behind his tired eyes. He chuckled weakly and took a sip of the water. "You're not scared of losing your job saying that to me?" She smiled faintly. "No, sir. I'm just doing mine." He laughed a little, shaking his head. "Fair enough." A few minutes later, Mr. Carter tried to stand, but he stumbled slightly. 2 guests nearby frowned and whispered something to each other. The manager noticed and started walking over, clearly ready to call security, but Lena stepped in first. "It's okay," she said quickly. "I'll take care of him." The manager gave her a doubtful look. "You sure?" "Yes, sir. I'll make sure he gets to his room safely." With that, Lena gently helped Mr. Carter stand and guided him toward the elevator. He was heavy and unsteady, but she moved slowly so he wouldn't fall. Along the way, a few guests watched with curiosity. Some smirked, others looked away, pretending not to notice. Lena didn't care what they thought. She just wanted to make sure the man didn't hurt himself. When they reached the elevator, he leaned slightly against the wall. "You don't have to do this, you know," he mumbled. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine, sir," she replied kindly. "Let's just get you to your room." The elevator doors closed and the music inside filled the silence. Mr. Carter stared at the floor for a moment. "You must think I'm pathetic," he said suddenly. Lena shook her head. "No, sir. Everyone has bad days. Some just happen in front of people." He glanced at her and gave a faint smile. "You talk like you've had your share." She didn't answer. She just looked ahead as the elevator reached the top floor. When they arrived at his suite, Lena helped him find the key card in his jacket and opened the door. The room was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather furniture, and a view of the entire city skyline. But it looked cold, almost lifeless. She helped him sit down on the couch and poured a glass of water from the minibar. "Here you go," she said, placing it near him. He looked around the room and sighed. "You ever wonder if all this means anything?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward the city lights. Lena smiled softly. "I think it means something if it makes you happy." "Does it make you happy, sir?" He laughed, but it wasn't a joyful laugh. "Not tonight, it doesn't." For a moment there was silence. The city lights flickered through the window, reflecting on the glass table. Lena glanced around and noticed that he'd left his phone and wallet on the floor. She quietly picked them up and placed them neatly on the counter. "You should get some rest," she said. "You'll feel better in the morning." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Wait, what's your name?" "Lena," she said, looking back. He nodded slowly. "You're different, Lena. Most people either want something from me or can't wait to get away. But you stayed." "I just did what anyone would do," she replied. He gave her a tired smile. "No, not everyone would." Lena didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded and headed toward the door. Before she left, she turned off the bright chandelier light, leaving only the soft glow from the city outside. The room looked calmer that way. She closed the door quietly behind her and walked back to the elevator, feeling relieved that the night was finally almost over. By the time she got back to the staff area, the restaurant had mostly cleared out. The other waiters were cleaning up, stacking chairs and wiping tables. The manager gave her a brief look and asked, "Everything okay?" "Yes, sir." "He's resting now," she said. "Good," the manager replied. "You handled that well. Go home and get some rest." Lena changed out of her uniform, grabbed her worn-out coat, and stepped out into the cool night air. The city was quiet, with only a few cars passing by. As she waited for the bus, she thought about the man in the suite, so rich yet so lonely. She felt sorry for him, not because of his money, but because of how empty he seemed despite having everything. Her bus arrived, and she took a seat by the window. She watched the tall buildings pass by, their windows glowing like stars. She thought about her little apartment in Brooklyn and her younger brother, who was probably asleep by now. She smiled faintly, thinking of how proud he'd be if he knew she'd handled such a difficult night so calmly. When she reached home, she quietly unlocked the door and slipped inside. The apartment was small but cozy. A few family photos hung on the wall, her mother, her brother, and her all smiling. She sat on the couch, took off her shoes, and closed her eyes for a moment. Her feet ached and her back hurt, but she felt a strange peace. She didn't know why, but helping that man tonight had reminded her that kindness still mattered, even in a world that often forgot it. She made herself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched the faint lights of the city in the distance. Tomorrow would be another long day, another shift, another round of guests to serve, but that was okay. She believed that doing her best, no matter how small the task, always made a difference to someone. What Lena didn't know was that this small act of kindness, one she thought would be forgotten by morning, was about to change her entire life. In just 1 week, everything she knew about her future would be rewritten in a way she could never have imagined. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the thin curtains of Lena's small apartment. She woke up before her alarm rang, as she always did. Her body still felt tired from the night before, but there was no time to rest. She made a quick cup of coffee, packed her brother's lunch, and left for work. Her routine was always the same: quiet, disciplined, and steady. On the bus ride to the hotel, her mind drifted back to the man from last night. She wondered if he was all right, or if he even remembered what had happened. Maybe he'd wake up embarrassed and pretend it never happened. She didn't expect him to remember her name, and honestly, she didn't care. For her, it was just another long shift, another customer who needed help. When she reached the Grand View, the morning staff were already busy preparing for breakfast service. The restaurant looked different in the daylight, calm, clean, and almost peaceful. Lena tied her apron, pinned her name tag, and joined the team. "Rough night, huh?" one of her co-workers teased as they set up the tables. "You have no idea," Lena laughed softly. "But at least it's over." The morning went smoothly. Most guests were polite and quiet, reading newspapers or scrolling on their phones while sipping coffee. Around mid-morning, the hotel manager called Lena to the side. "Someone's asking for you at the front desk," he said, sounding curious. "A man in a suit. Says he's a guest." Lena frowned slightly. "Did he give his name?" The manager shook his head. Didn't say much. But he looks important. Lena wiped her hands and walked to the lobby, wondering who it could be. When she reached the reception area, she froze. There, standing near the marble counter, was Mr. Carter, the same man she had helped last night. But this time he looked completely different. He was clean-shaven, sharply dressed, and alert. His face carried the calm confidence of someone used to being in control. For a moment, she didn't know if she should approach him. He noticed her almost instantly and smiled, the kind of smile that felt genuine. "There you are," he said warmly. "I was hoping I'd find you." "Good morning, sir," Lena replied politely. "Are you feeling better today?" He nodded. "Much better, thanks to you. I wanted to apologize for last night. I behaved less than gracefully." Lena shook her head quickly. "You don't need to apologize, sir. You were just tired." He chuckled softly. "That's a kind way to put it. Still, I appreciate how you handled everything. Most people would have just walked away." "It's part of the job," she said simply. "Maybe," he replied. "But kindness isn't part of every job description. You went beyond what anyone else would have done." Lena didn't know how to respond, so she just smiled politely. Mr. Carter looked around the lobby for a moment, then said, "Do you have a break soon? I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee, just to say thank you." "Oh, I can't," she said quickly. "Staff aren't allowed to sit with guests during shifts." He tilted his head slightly. "Rules, huh? Well, I suppose I can respect that." He reached into his pocket and took out a business card. "Then take this. If you ever need anything at all, call me." Lena hesitated before taking the card. It was heavy, with gold lettering that simply read Ethan Carter, founder and CEO, Carter Holdings. She tucked it carefully into her pocket and thanked him. He smiled again before walking out of the lobby, his assistant following close behind. When she turned back, the manager was watching from a distance, eyebrows raised. "That looked interesting," he said. "You know who that was?" "I do now," Lena said quietly. "Well," he said with a grin, "maybe you made the right impression." Lena laughed it off and returned to her work, trying not to think too much about it. But the truth was, his words stayed with her all day. You never know who's watching. Sometimes kindness changes everything. He had said something like that last night, and it echoed in her mind as she refilled glasses and cleared plates. That evening, after her shift, Lena took out the card again. She stared at the name and number printed neatly in gold. For a moment she thought about calling, maybe just to say thank you. But then she put it back in her wallet. People like him, she thought, didn't really keep in touch with people like her. He probably forgot about her already. A few days passed. Life went on as usual. The hotel stayed busy, and Lena kept working double shifts to save money. Her brother's college applications were due soon, and she wanted to help with the fees. Everything seemed ordinary again, just the way she liked it. But one Thursday morning, everything changed. Lena had just finished serving breakfast when the hotel intercom called her name. "Lena, please report to the general manager's office," the voice said. She frowned. That had never happened before. Her coworkers looked at her curiously. "What did you do?" One of them joked. "Hopefully nothing," she said, trying to smile. When she reached the manager's office, she was surprised to see two men in suits waiting inside. One of them stood up and introduced himself as Mr. Hall, a lawyer representing Carter Holdings. The other was from the hotel's ownership board. Her heart started beating faster. "Is everything okay?" she asked nervously. Mr. Hall smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, Ms. Lena. We're here with good news." He handed her a sealed envelope with her name written on it. "Mr. Carter asked that we deliver this to you personally." Lena blinked in confusion. She opened the envelope carefully and unfolded the papers inside. Her eyes scanned the first few lines, and she froze. It said that ownership of the Grandview Hotel was being transferred to her name. She looked up, stunned. I don't understand," she said. "This has to be a mistake." "It's no mistake," the lawyer replied gently. "Mr. Carter has officially signed over all rights to the property. It's been processed and notarized. This hotel now belongs to you." The room went silent. The manager's jaw dropped. One of the board members muttered something under his breath, completely shocked. Lena's hands trembled as she turned to the last page of the document. There, in bold signature, was the same name, Ethan Carter. At the bottom of the file there was a handwritten note, for the one who reminded me what humanity feels like. Build something good out of this. Lena felt her knees weaken. Why would he do this? She whispered. Mr. Hall smiled kindly. Mr. Carter didn't say much. Only that he wanted to leave this place in the hands of someone with heart. Tears filled Lena's eyes. She shook her head, overwhelmed. But I don't know how to run a hotel. I'm just a waitress. The manager finally found his voice. You're not just a waitress, Lena, he said softly. You've kept this place running more times than I can count. Maybe he saw something in you the rest of us didn't. Lena didn't know what to say. The whole thing felt unreal, like a dream she might wake up from any second. She looked at the papers again, still trying to process what had just happened. Everything she knew about her life, her struggles, her future. It all shifted in a single moment. The lawyer handed her one more envelope, this one smaller. Inside was a simple brass key, attached to a small tag that said owner's office. She held it in her hand, staring at it as if it might disappear. You can take some time to process this, the lawyer said gently. We'll handle the legal details and guide you through the transition. After they left, Lena sat in the chair, still holding the key. She felt numb, almost dizzy. The manager brought her a glass of water and sat across from her. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. I just don't understand why he'd do something like this. Maybe, the manager said, you reminded him of what's real. People like him, they live in a different world. Maybe you showed him something he'd forgotten. That night, Lena walked through the quiet halls of the hotel after closing. Everything looked the same, yet it all felt different. The golden lights, the marble floors, the rooms she'd cleaned and served in for years. All of it now belonged to her. She reached the office door, unlocked it with the brass key, and stepped inside. The air smelled of polished wood and coffee. On the desk was a small box. Inside it was a note written in the same neat handwriting. Don't let this gift change you. Let it change others. Lena smiled through her tears. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the small kind that fades after a hard day, but the deep kind that grows from gratitude. She looked out the window at the city lights, the same view Mr. Carter had seen the night she helped him. Only this time it wasn't a drunk billionaire looking out. It was her. A woman who had nothing but a kind heart, now holding the keys to everything she once thought was out of reach. The next few days felt like a blur for Lena. Every morning she woke up thinking it had all been a dream. But every time she looked at that brass key and the signed documents, reality hit her again. The Grandview Hotel, this grand shining place where she had once carried trays and polished glasses, was now hers. At first she didn't even know what to do. She still came to work early, wore her uniform, and helped the staff like she always had. But the staff looked at her differently now. Some smiled proudly, others whispered behind her back. A few couldn't hide their jealousy. She's the new owner, one of them said quietly as she walked by. Owner? She's a waitress, another replied. Well, not anymore. Lena heard them, but she didn't say anything. Deep down, she understood their confusion. Even she couldn't believe it. The general manager tried to convince her to stop doing regular shifts. You don't have to serve tables anymore, he told her kindly. You're the owner now. You should be in the office, but Lena shook her head. I can't just stop working because of a title. Let me take things slow. I need to learn how this place really runs. So she spent the first week walking through every department, kitchen, housekeeping, reception, maintenance, talking to people, asking questions, taking notes. She wanted to know what worked, what didn't, and how the staff really felt. Most of them were surprised at how humble she was. She's still the same Lena, one of the cooks said. Doesn't even act like she owns the place. But not everyone was kind. A few supervisors felt threatened. One of them, a middle-aged man from accounting, muttered one afternoon, kindness is nice, but running a hotel isn't about smiling. Let's see how long she lasts. Lena overheard that too, but instead of getting angry, she took it as motivation. She knew she wasn't a businesswoman. She didn't have a fancy degree or corporate experience. But she had something most people in high positions didn't. She knew what it felt like to stand on the other side of power. Late one evening, she sat in the office that had once belonged to the previous owner. The desk was large and spotless, the kind of furniture that seemed made for important people. She sat there quietly, staring at the city lights through the wide glass window. She remembered the first day she had walked into the hotel years ago, just a nervous applicant with a wrinkled resume and borrowed shoes. Back then, she never imagined she'd even be promoted to supervisor, let alone sit here as the owner. She opened a notebook and wrote down a simple list. Treat everyone equally. Fix what's broken, not just in the building but in the system. Make this place feel human again. That last one was the most important to her. The next morning, Lena called a meeting with all department heads. Most of them walked into the conference room expecting a serious corporate speech, but she surprised them. "I'm not here to change everything overnight," she began calmly. "I'm here to listen. This hotel works because of you, so tell me, what do you need? What would make your jobs better?" The room went silent. People exchanged surprised looks. No one had ever asked them that before. One woman from housekeeping raised her hand nervously. "Ma'am, the laundry machines have been breaking for months. We reported it, but it keeps getting delayed." Lena nodded. "Noted. It'll be fixed within the week." A man from maintenance spoke up next. "We're always short on staff at night. If we had one more person, we could handle emergencies faster." "All right," Lena said, writing it down. "We'll hire one more night worker." Soon everyone started sharing ideas. Some were small requests, others were big changes. Lena listened to every single one. By the end of the meeting, people were smiling. It was the first time in a long while they felt heard. Over the next few days, Lena kept her promises. New laundry machines were installed. The kitchen staff got updated equipment. She even started a small rest area for employees to take breaks with snacks and coffee. It wasn't much, but it made people feel valued. Word spread quickly around the hotel. "The new owner actually cares," people said. Guests noticed too. The staff seemed happier, more relaxed, more genuine. Service improved, and the hotel's reputation began to rise. But success didn't come without challenges. One morning, the hotel's senior accountant walked into her office looking frustrated. "Miss Lena, we need to talk. You're spending too much on upgrades and staff benefits. The monthly budget is stretching thin." Lena looked at the papers carefully. He was right about the numbers, but she wasn't ready to back down. "These aren't expenses," she said softly. "They're investments. If we treat our people well, they'll treat our guests even better. That's what brings profit." He sighed, clearly not convinced. "Business doesn't work on feelings." "Maybe not," she said calmly. "But this hotel runs on people, not just numbers." It was hard work. Every day brought new decisions, new pressures. She made mistakes, some small, some big, but she learned from each one. The best part was that her staff started trusting her more. They began calling her by her first name again, just like before. One night, as she walked through the lobby after closing, she noticed an older guest struggling to lift his suitcase. Without thinking twice, she rushed over and helped him. "Thank you, young lady," the man said kindly. "You must work here," Lena smiled. "Something like that." The receptionist who saw it happen smiled too. "You know," she said quietly, "most owners wouldn't do that." "Then maybe they're missing out," Lena replied. A week later, an article appeared online. The headline read, "Waitress who helped drunk billionaire becomes hotel owner." At first, Lena didn't even know about it until a guest showed her the article on their phone. It had already gone viral. People were sharing it across social media, calling her story inspiring and unbelievable. News reporters began calling the hotel, asking for interviews. The manager suggested she do one short interview to share her side of the story, so she finally agreed. During the interview, the reporter asked, "Lena, how does it feel to go from waitress to hotel owner in just 1 week?" Lena smiled softly. "It feels humbling. I still don't fully understand why it happened. But I do know that kindness comes back to you sometimes in ways you can't imagine." The video spread everywhere. People from all over the country sent her letters and messages. Some said her story gave them hope. Others said it reminded them that good people still exist. Despite all the attention, Lena stayed the same. She still came to work early, still helped carry trays when the staff were busy, still listened to everyone with patience. One afternoon, she received an email from an overseas address. The subject line read, "Proud of you, keep the light on." There was no name, but she didn't need one. She knew it was from him, Mr. Carter. She read it twice and smiled. She typed back a short message. "Thank you for believing in me. I'll take care of what you built." After sending it, she sat quietly for a long time. She realized she hadn't seen him since that day in the lobby. But his presence still lingered everywhere in the hotel. Sometimes when she walked through the hallways, she imagined him watching from somewhere far away, making sure she was doing well. Months passed, and the hotel began to thrive more than ever. Reviews poured in from happy guests. The staff grew more loyal. The board members who had doubted her at first now respected her deeply. One evening, the manager knocked on her office door. "There's someone you should meet," he said. Outside stood a young woman holding a job application. She looked nervous, her clothes a little worn. "I'm here for the waitress position," she said quietly. Lena looked at her for a moment, then smiled warmly. "You've got the job," she said. The woman's eyes widened. "Really? Don't you need to see my resume first?" "Not this time," Lena said. "Sometimes you can see potential without a piece of paper." Later that night, as Lena walked through the quiet lobby, she stopped by the front desk and looked around. Everything seemed brighter somehow. The staff laughed softly as they finished their shifts. Guests passed by smiling, saying goodnight. She took a deep breath and felt proud, not because she owned a hotel, but because she had turned it into something human. Something kind. She thought of her mother's old words. "What you give out always finds its way back." Lena looked out the glass doors into the night. The city sparkled, alive and endless. Somewhere out there, the man who changed her life might be looking at the same skyline, and she whispered softly, "You gave me a chance. I'll make sure it counts." Then she smiled to herself and walked back toward the heart of the hotel, her hotel, ready to face whatever tomorrow brought. Now she silently promised herself she wouldn't waste it. When Lena woke up that morning, she still couldn't believe she owned the hotel. Every time she looked at the legal papers sitting on her nightstand, her hands trembled a little. It all felt like a dream, something so far from her world that even after days of meetings, signings, and endless congratulations, her heart hadn't fully caught up. Her phone kept buzzing with messages. Former coworkers from other restaurants sent her news articles with her face on them. Headlines like "Waitress becomes hotel owner after helping drunk billionaire" flashed across every screen. Some people wrote her kind words. Others couldn't believe it was real. But Lena wasn't focused on fame. What mattered most to her was figuring out how to run this place with honesty and heart. She walked into the hotel lobby early that morning. The staff stared quietly, unsure how to treat her now. Just a week ago, she had been carrying trays, taking orders, smiling through exhaustion. Now she was the boss. Lena could feel the weight of their eyes, the whispers behind her. Some looked happy for her. Others looked doubtful. "Good morning," she said with her usual gentle smile. Her voice was calm, but inside she was nervous. The front desk clerk greeted her politely but avoided eye contact. The manager, who once barked orders at her, gave a forced smile. Lena didn't blame them. Change like this could make anyone uncomfortable. She took a deep breath and said to herself, "I have to show them I'm still me." The day was long and full of decisions. Lawyers came in with documents. Financial advisors tried to explain things she'd never had to think about before. Taxes, budgets, renovation costs. It was overwhelming, but Lena kept a notebook in her hand, writing everything down, asking questions when she didn't understand. No one expected her to know everything, but she wanted to learn. Later that day, she called a meeting with all the hotel staff. Around 30 employees gathered in the large conference room: chefs, housekeepers, waiters, receptionists. They sat quietly, waiting for her to speak. Lena stood in front of them, her palms slightly sweaty. "I know things feel strange," she began softly. "I know some of you are wondering how someone like me ended up here. Honestly, I'm wondering the same thing." A few people chuckled gently and the tension eased a little. She continued, "But I didn't come here to change everything overnight. I came here to build something better with all of you. This hotel isn't just mine now. It's ours. Every person who works here matters. Every job matters. And I want everyone to feel proud to be part of this place." The room was quiet again, but this time the silence felt warmer. She spoke about her dreams for the hotel, to make it known not just for its luxury, but for its kindness. "When people come here," she said, "they shouldn't just remember how beautiful the lobby is. They should remember how they were treated." When the meeting ended, some employees approached her privately. The housekeeping supervisor, A middle-aged woman who'd worked there for 15 years said with tears in her eyes, "You remind me why I started here in the first place." That night, Lena sat in her new office. The large window overlooked the city lights. The office once belonged to the general manager, but now it was hers. She ran her hand over the wooden desk. Still unsure how fate had chosen her for this path, she picked up her phone and found a message waiting. It was from Mr. Carter. "Proud of you, kid. Keep the light on," Lena smiled. She typed back, "Thank you. I'll do my best." Days turned into weeks. Slowly, Lena's vision began taking shape. She didn't fire anyone. Instead, she promoted people who had been ignored for too long. The older housekeeper who trained every new employee, she became head of housekeeping. The shy bellboy who was always on time and polite to guests, Lena gave him a raise and more responsibility. She started weekly meetings where anyone could share ideas or concerns. For the first time, even the quietest workers felt their voices mattered. The energy of the hotel began to change. Guests noticed it too. They wrote glowing reviews about the staff's warmth and the sense of comfort that filled the place. The restaurant, which once felt stiff and cold, now buzzed with friendly laughter. One day, a woman staying at the hotel stopped Lena near the elevator. "I don't know what's different about this place," she said with a smile, "but it feels alive again." That compliment stayed with Lena all day. It made her realize she wasn't just managing a building. She was building a culture. Of course, not everything was easy. A few senior employees didn't like taking orders from someone who used to serve them. The finance director once told her bluntly, "You're kind, Lena, but kindness doesn't keep profits up." Lena didn't argue. She simply said, "Then let's find a way to make kindness profitable." She started hosting charity events at the hotel, fundraisers for homeless shelters, free cooking workshops for young people who wanted to join the hospitality industry. Local media covered every event, and soon the hotel became known as the place that cares. One evening, after a long day, Lena went to the hotel restaurant and ordered her favorite dish, simple roasted chicken with mashed potatoes. The chef brought it himself. "For the new boss," he said proudly. As she ate, she looked around and saw the waiters smiling, the guests laughing, the lights warm and inviting. She remembered her first night helping a drunk billionaire to his room. That night had changed everything, but not because of luck, because she had chosen kindness when no one else did. She often thought about Mr. Carter. Where was he now? Did he ever think about that night? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But his gift had given her more than a hotel. It had given her a chance to prove that compassion could lead just as well as money or power. Months passed, and the hotel's success grew beyond expectation. Lena's story continued to inspire people everywhere. She received invitations to speak at conferences, interviews from TV hosts who wanted to know how she managed to turn a struggling hotel into one of the most admired businesses in the city. But whenever she stood in front of cameras or audiences, she always said the same thing: "It wasn't about me. It was about remembering that everyone deserves respect, no matter who they are or where they come from." Her words reached far beyond the hotel walls. People began visiting just to meet her. Some came just to take pictures in the lobby where her story began. Others came to find hope. One morning, she received a letter from a young woman in another state. The woman wrote, "I work as a waitress too, and your story made me believe I can dream bigger. Thank you for showing people like me that we matter." Lena cried when she read that, because deep down, that was all she ever wanted, to matter. Her brother, who was now in college, came to visit during his vacation. As they walked through the grand hallway together, he said, "You changed everything, Lena. I'm proud of you." She smiled softly. "I didn't change everything," she replied. "I just did one right thing, and the rest followed." That night, after closing hours, Lena walked through the quiet lobby. The chandeliers glowed softly. The scent of fresh flowers filled the air. She stopped by the front desk and saw one of the new receptionists helping an elderly couple check in. The young woman spoke gently, smiling with the same warmth Lena once showed to every guest. Watching that moment, Lena realized the hotel had truly become what she dreamed it could be, a place where kindness lived in every corner. She went up to her office, opened her window and looked at the city lights again. The skyline shimmered like a sea of stars. She thought of the people who once doubted her and those who had stood beside her. Then she whispered quietly, "We did it." And somewhere, she liked to believe, Mr. Carter might have heard her. The story of the waitress who became a hotel owner wasn't just a miracle. It was proof that even one act of compassion could echo through 1,000 hearts. And as long as that hotel stood, its walls would hold that truth forever. A year had passed since Lena became the owner of the hotel. The place looked different now, not because of fancy renovations or new decorations, but because of the atmosphere. There was warmth in every corner. The staff smiled easily. The guests often stayed longer than planned, and there was a calm rhythm that made everyone feel at home. The hotel had become more than just a building of glass and marble. It had become a story, one that people whispered about, one that journalists wrote about, one that strangers came to see with their own eyes. Lena never got used to being called the owner. Every time someone addressed her that way, she still felt like the same woman who used to rush through the kitchen with plates stacked high, trying to remember table numbers and drink orders. But she had grown in quiet ways. She had learned to lead without losing her humility. She had learned how to say no when she needed to, and how to lift others up when they deserved it. One bright morning, Lena sat by the hotel's rooftop garden sipping tea. She had turned this once empty space into a small garden full of flowers, herbs, and benches where staff could rest between shifts. She often came there when she needed peace. As she looked out over the city skyline, her assistant walked in and handed her a thick folder. "These are the proposals for expansion," the assistant said. "We've had offers from investors. They all want to buy a part of the business." Lena opened the folder, scanning the numbers and names. The offers were huge, enough money to set her for life. But she closed it gently and said, "We'll think about it later." She wasn't chasing wealth. She was chasing purpose. Later that day, Lena gathered the team in the same conference room where she had once stood trembling a year ago. This time, her confidence filled the space. She shared her plans to create a scholarship fund under the hotel's name, a program to support young people who wanted to study hospitality but couldn't afford it. The staff clapped with excitement. Some had tears in their eyes. Many of them had come from tough backgrounds themselves, so they understood exactly what that meant. Lena also announced that a percentage of the hotel's profit would go into community work, feeding programs, job training, and shelter support. "This hotel changed my life," she told them softly. "Now it's our turn to change other lives." The following weeks were full of new beginnings. Lena worked closely with local organizations to start her scholarship project. She met with students, listened to their stories, and saw herself in their eyes, that same hunger to do something meaningful, that same exhaustion from trying to make ends meet. During one of the interviews, a shy teenage girl told Lena, "I want to work in a hotel one day, just like you." Lena smiled warmly and said, "Then you will. Just remember that every small act matters. Even the things no one notices can lead you somewhere beautiful." As time passed, the hotel celebrated its first anniversary under her leadership. The day felt emotional. Banners hung across the lobby, and the air was filled with soft music. Employees dressed up in their best uniforms and familiar faces from the community arrived to celebrate. The local news covered the event live. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked her how it felt to stand in the same place where she once waited tables. Lena looked around, smiled, and said, "It feels like standing inside a miracle, but one built by many hands, not just mine." When she walked onto the small stage set up in the lobby, the entire staff stood behind her. She held the microphone and paused for a moment, looking at all the people who had become like family. "I remember the first night I worked here," she began. "I was nervous, tired, and scared of making mistakes. I never imagined I'd be standing here today, but I've learned that life isn't always about luck. Sometimes it's about how you treat people when no one's watching." The crowd was silent, listening closely. She continued, "I met someone who reminded me that kindness still matters in this world. Because of that, I got a chance I never thought possible. And now I want to give chances to others. That's what this hotel will always be about. Respect, kindness, and second chances." When she finished, the audience erupted into applause. Some clapped, some cheered, some wiped their eyes. The moment felt bigger than the hotel itself. After the ceremony, people came up to thank her, shake her hand, and share their stories. An older man told her he had lost faith in humanity until he read about her. A young woman said her mother sent her the article about Lena whenever she felt hopeless.